Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like you're facing unjust criticism, or maybe that you just need a stronger shield against life's challenges? You know those times. Well, today we're diving into some ancient spiritual texts that offer some pretty profound guidance for those very feelings. We're going to explore how three specific psalms, that's 7, 35, and 51, are traditionally used as spiritual tools. Think protection, justice, spiritual purification. That's our mission. We'll look at their unique uses, and this is crucial, the powerful warnings that come with them so you can really grasp their full significance.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that our insights, they come from excerpts titled Psalms of Protection, Justice, Defense, and Purification. It's by Luna Ursa, published on the Universe Unveiled website, and it provides a very specific, very insightful guide. It actually kicks off with what it calls aviso importante. That's an important warning.
An important warning. Okay, right out of the gate.
Exactly. Before we even get into the Psalms themselves, the source really stresses that these are incredibly powerful. It states pretty unequivocally that if your life isn't aligned with, let's say, divine principles, if there are pendencias espirituales,
Pendencias espirituales, like spiritual debts or unresolved issues.
precisely,
Huh.
or even just injustice in your own heart,
Uh,
if that's the case, the justice you're seeking through these Psalms can actually turn against you, which really raises the big question for anyone thinking about using these, doesn't it?
yeah.
What does it truly mean to pray with purity, humility, and, true faith?
Wow. Okay, so that initial warning, it definitely sets a high bar. It's not just reciting words.
Not at all.
It implies that the effectiveness is completely tied to your internal state, your intentions.
That's the core message.
So does the source elaborate much on what that purity, humility, and true faith really looks like? Beyond just avoiding those spiritual pending issues, is it like an ongoing thing or something you do right before praying?
Well, it seems to emphasize both, really. It frames it as an ongoing commitment. The source is clear. These aren't just words, they're spiritual forces.
Uh,
And like any powerful force, the intention behind it and the person channeling it, they're paramount. It's about cultivating this inner state of integrity, of alignment. It's not just about avoiding specific wrongs.
I see.
That integrity, it sort of becomes part of the prayer itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so with that really important foundation laid, let's look at Psalm 7. Our sources describe this one as a prayer of liberation, specifically against unjust enemies, false accusers. A direct plea for God to step in, reveal the truth, judge fairly. Sounds like a tool for when you feel really wrongfully targeted.
It absolutely is framed that way. The practical advice is to read Psalm 7 aloud, with real concentration, whenever you feel that injustice or persecution. And to activate its spiritual force, the guidance is to repeat it 7 consecutive times.
7 times.
Yes, 7 times. And while doing so, consciously surrendering that feeling, that weight of injustice to God, trusting Him as the supreme judge. It's really about letting go of the burden and allowing that higher power to handle it.
And the effect, it's described almost like a shield, right?
Exactly, like a shield, one specifically designed to, well, return falsehood and malice back to whoever sent it your way.
Interesting. It's not about you striking back, but about divine truth redirecting the negative energy.
Precisely.
It makes me think about, everyday situations, like dealing with persistent unfairness at work, maybe. How would the source advise someone use Psalm 7 there?
Well, the key, even in a situation like that, is still the surrender of any personal desire for revenge. That's critical. You're not praying for your difficult colleague to get fired or something.
Right.
You're praying for the truth of the situation to come to light, for God's justice, not your version of it. It goes back to maintaining that clean heart. Then the psalm can act as that shield, making you less susceptible to the negativity because you're grounded in spiritual integrity.
Okay, so Psalm 7 is the shield. Then our sources suggest Psalm 35 sort of steps things up. It moves into active defense. It's apparently considered one of the strongest spiritual weapons against enemies, both the ones you see and the hidden ones. A powerful cry for God to actively fight your battles, confuse your adversary's plans.
Yes, and there's a slightly different approach to using it. A key distinction is starting with an initial prayer, specifically for divine protection. Then, the advice is to read Psalm 35 for 3 consecutive days, and always at the same time each day.
Consistency seems important there.
Very. And the source also suggests, if it's possible for you, lighting a white candle. But again, crucially, maintaining a heart completely clean of any desire for personal vengeance. Total entrustment of justice to God.
So it's still not about taking matters into your own hands, spiritually speaking. It's about asking for divine intervention.
Exactly.
This constant reliance on God's will, it keeps connecting back to that initial warning, doesn't it?
It really does.
Psalm 35 is described like a spiritual sword, warding off attacks, even turning enemies' traps back on them. But it's God's agency doing the work.
Precisely. It's a call for intervention, never an invocation of your own power to harm. The source is quite stark on this. Trying to use these psalms with hatred or wanting personal revenge, it doesn't just stop them from working, it can actually open up spiritual breaches, vulnerabilities in your own life for negativity to enter.
Wow. That's a serious point about discernment.
It is.
Okay, next up is Psalm 51. Now, this one is traditionally known more as the Psalm of Purification, of repentance, but our deep dive suggests it also has significant power against enemies. How? By strengthening your connection with God and building up an internal defense. That link between purification and protection is really interesting.
It really is. And this is where you start to see the deeper why behind the warnings. The application here is to read it upon waking and before sleeping for 7 consecutive days.
Morning and night.
Yes. And during this period, you specifically ask God to purify your mind, your body, your spirit. A total cleanse, you could say. And after each reading, you follow it with a prayer asking that any evil directed towards you be dissolved. Dissolved. And what's fascinating is the principle behind it. The idea that the strongest defense isn't actually an external shield or sword, necessarily. It's an inner state of integrity in alignment with the divine. That purity makes you less susceptible because negative intentions or energies, well, they just don't have an entry point to exploit.
That's quite profound, actually, that your inner state is your ultimate defense, creating, as the source says, a barrier of light from within.
Yes, that's the imagery used, a barrier of light around your life.
And the purer your heart, the stronger that barrier, the more protected you are against spiritual attacks. It's a very holistic view of defense.
Definitely. And if we circle back, connecting all this to the bigger picture, using these psalms effectively hinges on understanding these, let's call them fundamental rules that our source keeps bringing up. First, as we've said, never pray with hatred or desire for revenge. Those feelings, they can open those spiritual breaches.
Right.
Always pray for God's justice, capital G, capital J, not your own personal idea of retribution. And the big one we started with, if your life is spiritually out of alignment, tangled in sin, the sheer power of these psalms can, yes, turn back against you. It reflects your own imbalance.
Okay, so pulling this together for daily practice, for you, the listener, can you use these songs every day?
The source suggests yes, you can, but always with profound respect and a keen awareness of their power. Ideally, reserving them for moments of genuine need or perhaps deep spiritual intention rather than casually.
And what about the repetition? We heard 7 times for Psalm 7, 3 days for 35, 7 days for 51.
Yes, the source confirms that repetition strengthens the spiritual vibration. It sort of amplifies the prayer's energy, attunes your focus. And the number 7 specifically comes up often, highlighted as symbolizing spiritual perfection or completion in this context.
So we've journeyed through Psalms 7, 35, and 51. We've seen their distinct roles, seeking justice, active defense, and that deep spiritual purification for protection. Each offers a unique way to engage, moving from like a shield to a sword and ultimately to building that inner fortress of light.
Absolutely. And the central message, the one repeated throughout our source material, is that the real power isn't just in reciting the words. It lies in the sincerity of your heart, your humility, your unwavering faith. These aren't magic spells. They're profound spiritual tools that demand that internal alignment, that right intention.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to maybe chew on. How might this principle of spiritual alignment, being true to your deepest intentions and values, how might that apply not just to these ancient practices, but also to the outcomes and the effectiveness of your actions in, well, every other aspect of your life?